Welcome back, everyone, to another Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolute heavyweight clash from Group F of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We're going to break down the anatomy of a truly fascinating tactical stalemate between two footballing powerhouses, Brazil and Morocco. If you're into high-intensity football, flashes of pure brilliance, and honestly, just incredible tactical discipline, well, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. It is basically the ultimate puzzle in international football, right? How do you actually stop Brazil's attack? I mean, for decades, teams have tried and mostly failed to contain that legendary rhythm and flair. But in this specific match, we got a literal masterclass in how a team attempts to answer that exact, seemingly impossible question.
Section 1. Group F. Heavyweight Clash. A contrast in styles. Right from the opening whistle, Brazil, as you'd expect, established their attacking rhythm. They dominated possession, basically living on the ball, and probed the lines with this unbelievable creativity in the midfield. They're constantly hunting for that killer pass through a really dynamic 4-3-3 shape. But Morocco's response? Absolutely brilliant. They didn't panic. They didn't overextend. Instead, they fell back on a rock-solid defensive structure, dropping into this incredibly compact 4-1-4-1 formation and just waited to unleash the counterattack. They stayed so organized, completely absorbing that early Brazilian pressure.
Section 2. The shock and the response.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because those opening minutes, all Brazil. But then, right in the middle of the first half, bam! A total shock goal from Morocco absolutely stuns the stadium. But, Brazil being Brazil, they don't stay down for long. They actually found their equalizer late in the half, which set up a crazy tense halftime whistle. Honestly, it was a complete roller coaster of emotions in just 45 minutes. So let's zoom in on that shock goal for a second. Despite all of Brazil's early pressure, it was actually Morocco who struck first. And how did they do it? Exactly as they drew it up. They used a blistering, hyper-quick counterattack. When Brazil pushed their fullbacks up super high to apply pressure, they essentially left these glaring pockets of empty space right behind their defensive line. Morocco spotted that space, totally bypassed the high press with one perfectly placed direct pass, and finished the chance with clinical precision. Just like that, it's 1-0 Morocco, and the Giants are suddenly trailing.
But look, you don't poke the bear without expecting a reaction, right? And Brazil responded immediately. They didn't just keep possession, they drastically dialed up the tempo. Pushing heavy numbers forward, they launched this relentless high-tempo assault. They literally locked Morocco into their own penalty area with a sustained spell of intense pressure. And their sheer persistence, it finally paid off. They battered the door down and grabbed that crucial equalizer right before the halftime whistle.
Section 3. The second half stalemate. To really understand the mechanics of that second half, we need to look at the tactical block. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows exactly what Morocco deployed. It's a highly disciplined defensive formation that prioritizes structure and organization over offensive risk, specifically to neutralize the opponent. Brazil was still hovering around 65% possession, pushing forward with all their usual flair, but they simply could not break down this disciplined, brick-wall defense. Morocco's resilience was just absolute.
But I want to be very, very clear here. Morocco wasn't just, parking the bus and holding on for dear life. They remained incredibly dangerous. In fact, on a couple of very tense occasions, Morocco nearly snatched the lead right back against the run of play. They forced some absolutely crucial saves and pretty desperate defensive interventions from Brazil. So both teams were forced to play at a big cautious, leaning on their structure, because the threat level from both sides was just off the charts.
And all of that unbreakable tension leads us to this definitive result. Despite some late, really desperate pressure from Brazil trying to find a winner, the final whistle blows, 1-1. An unbelievable display of resilience and tactical execution against literally one of the most potent attacking forces in world football.
Section 4. Final tactical breakdown.
So, the crucial point is really down to a clash of two specific units. On one side, you have Brazil's midfield. They dictated the game, they controlled possession masterfully, but crucially, they just lacked that final decisive penetration into the penalty box. And standing against them were the absolute heroes of the day, Morocco's defensive unit. I mean, they faced wave after wave of sustained pressure, they held their nerve, and they handled it flawlessly. This specific side-by-side clash, that's what completely defined the outcome of the match.
All right, let's quickly recap what we just witnessed. First, we had Morocco completely shocking the world with a perfectly executed opening counterattack goal. Then, we saw Brazil's champion mentality shine through with a rapid, high-tempo response to level it up. We witnessed an absolute masterclass in strong defensive performance from Morocco. And finally, we saw that gripping second-half tactical stalemate where sheer discipline ultimately neutralized creative flair.
Ultimately, this was a tactical battle full of intensity and discipline. This match was basically a masterclass, proving that immense tactical discipline and a perfectly executed block can absolutely go toe-to-toe with overwhelming possession and attacking flair. Morocco built a wall that even Brazil couldn't knock down. Which leaves us with one massive, lingering question for the rest of this 2026 World Cup. If Brazil couldn't break the Moroccan wall, who can? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.